Well, thanks a lot for inviting me here to the stage. And dear organizers, dear all participants, I was asked to talk about the toughest question we face these days. Europe without the United States. Is it possible? Of course, I will speak mainly about security and defense. What will happen to European security and defense if and when the Americans will diminish their military presence on the European continent? My answer to that question can be very short and simple. First, looking into next decade. Yes, it is not only possible, but almost unavoidable that we shall need to stand on our own 2 feet in defense matters in Europe, because Americans will more and more withdraw from Europe. And second, it is not only possible, but it's our duty as Europeans to be ready to assume the sole responsibility for the defense of Europe. It will not be easy to defend Europe only by Europeans, but that is what we must be ready to do. We will need to take care not only about the material side of defense, how many weapons we need to produce and procure, but also about the institutional and political side of the issue, how to organize European defense on our own. This kind of readiness will take time, but to make it possible, we need to change our mindset already now. Less complaining that we are being betrayed, and more rational preparation for a transatlantic division of responsibilities. Few words on what we are facing. To understand the challenges we will need to overcome in our preparedness, let's start with a short description of what we are facing now. First, war in Ukraine, without clear perspectives of peace. Putin does not want peace. He thinks he is benefiting from this war. If things with peace negotiations will continue in the same way as they were going till now, war can continue until Putin decides that he has benefited enough from this war, and then he will turn to another target. Second, Putin's aggressiveness in the future will only increase. If peace would be concluded in Ukraine, Putin will continue to mobilize Russia's war economy to produce huge amounts of weapons. At the moment, Putin is able to produce 4 times more ammunition than all NATO members, including the United States of America, produce together. Our intelligence services predict that starting from 2027-28, Putin can be ready to test NATO's Article 5. This year, Putin again organizes big military exercises Zapad in Belarus, close to the borders of Poland and Lithuania. This is done the first time since the beginning of the war in 2022. American forthcoming withdrawal from Europe is a new reality. That is my third point. This does not mean American withdrawal from NATO. But China's rising military power will push the United States to shift its attention more and more to the Indo-Pacific, at the same time diminishing the United States' presence on the European continent. That is going to happen not because Americans do not love Europeans anymore, but because global geopolitical reality and security challenges are changing very rapidly and radically, and we need to be ready to adapt. In short, we are now facing the perfect storm on the European continent. War in Ukraine continuing, Russia's aggressiveness increasing, American withdrawal speeding up, and all together creating conditions for a deep crisis on the European continent. But as is often said, never waste a good crisis to take bold decisions and reforms. As Jean Monnet said in 1957, I quote, "The European community will be created during the crisis, and the sum of what will be created during those crises, that will be the European community." So during this crisis, what kind of European community in defense do we need to create? To better understand what we need to be ready for, let's make a short overview of the conclusions we can draw from the experience of the war in Ukraine. So, few words on the lessons of the war in Ukraine. We need to understand that on the European continent at the moment, there are 2 battle-tested armies with the ability to use millions of drones, Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine for its own defense and the defense of Europe, Russia in preparation for its next aggression. The biggest change in warfare is clear. Today, 80% of targets in Ukraine are destroyed by drones. There is a 15-kilometer death valley on both sides of the front line where nothing can move. The valley is created by drones, Ukrainian drones and Russian drones. A traditional tank on average survives 6 minutes in this death valley. Every 2 months there is a need for radical innovation of the drones in operation as the Russians learn to jam or intercept the previous models. Ukraine during this year will produce and will use 4 million drones. Russia, perhaps a similar amount. Last week I spoke with a famous Ukrainian general, former commander of the Ukrainian military forces in 2022-24, Valery Zaluzhny. He is now Ukrainian ambassador to the United Kingdom. And he told me that Russia and China are learning a lot from the war in Ukraine, how a modern war of attrition develops. At the beginning of Russian aggression, the Russian army was at its weakest point. Now the Russian army has changed a great deal. Ukrainians say that the Russians are as good as Ukrainians at drones and electronic warfare, sometimes even better. We can assume that Putin started the war and continues the war not only to grab new territories, but also to learn how to fight a modern war. In the case of Russian aggression against NATO or EU member state, we will face a battle-tested Russian army with millions of drones in its army of drones. Are we ready for that? Unfortunately, for the time being, I doubt it. General Zaluzhny also told me the West, including the European Union, is still preparing to fight the wars of yesterday. Maybe the United Kingdom can be a source of inspiration for us, especially now when we sign historically important partnership in security and defense. Last week, the British Army announced its new military strategy, the so-called 20-40-40 strategy. Heavy equipment like tanks, infantry vehicles, helicopters will make up 20% of fighting capability. Single-use kamikaze drones and long-range missiles will make up the first 40%. Reusable drones, more durable reconnaissance or attack drones will make up the remaining 40%. This sounds very similar to the Ukrainian strategy to hit 80% of targets with drones. The United Kingdom inspires us to update not only our military technologies, but also our military doctrines. It's time we learn from both the Ukrainians and the British. Few words on what to do. It's time for us to answer the very simple question. What do we need to do to be ready to face aggression from Russia's battle-tested army and at the same time to prepare for the prospect of American withdrawal? On material preparedness. First of all, as it's stated in the white paper, we must urgently ensure material preparedness for defense according to NATO defense plans and NATO capability targets. At the upcoming summit, NATO will likely ask alliance members to raise the military capability targets by 30%. That is what we can read in mass media. But allies are already 30% behind in delivering on existing capability targets. So the proposed increase means there is a huge hole in our readiness. That is how NATO Supreme Allied Commander Transformation, Admiral Pierre Van Der, put it at his press briefing in March. Material preparedness means a radical increase in development and procurement of new weapons. And it means a ramp-up of industrial production on the European continent. For that, we need enough of financial resources. Rapid implementation of Rearm Europe with safe loans and activating the National Escape Clause brings new hundreds of billions of financial resources into our defense industry. We need to use these instruments in the most effective way possible. On replacement of United States resources. Instead of complaining that the Americans are going to betray us, we need to immediately start preparations for replacing American defense resources on the European continent. Let's have our material and political readiness programs in order to avoid an emotional and angry divorce. We must have a rational agreement with our transatlantic partners on division of responsibilities and discuss with our partners how long it will take us and which steps we need to take to implement it. It's clear that 450 million Europeans should not complain that 340 million Americans are not ready to permanently defend us against 140 million Russians who are not able during 3 years of war to defeat 38 million Ukrainians. It is also clear that in Europe we still very heavily depend on US resources, especially on so-called strategic enablers, like space intelligence data, command and control centers, heavy airlift capabilities, refueling in the air capabilities. That is what we need to develop in Europe without delay. Definitely, it will cost a lot of money. A leading think tank in studies of war, the International Institute for Strategic Studies, estimates that it could cost for European allies up to $1 trillion to replace the current US contribution to NATO collective defense capabilities on the European continent. And the Bruegel think tank in their recent paper gives the estimate, I quote, Europe could need 300,000 more troops and an annual defense spending hike of at least 250 billion in the short term to deter Russian aggression. Readiness really costs a lot, but non-readiness could cost much more. On responsibility for peace on the European continent, few words. In Europe, we need to understand that peace is not interesting for Putin, and diplomacy alone will not bring any kind of peace. A forthcoming American withdrawal from Europe would also mean perhaps withdrawing from the Ukrainian issue, including on peace. So in Europe, we need to change our approach on peace in Ukraine. Until now, we were mainly waiting for peace to happen. We first had an European hope that Ukraine itself would manage to win and to achieve peace during 2022-2023 period. Then we were waiting for President Biden and later for President Trump to miraculously convince Putin to agree on peace. Recently, we started waiting for phone calls to Putin or for negotiations in Vatican. It looks like that it does not work. Now our last hope in our waiting game is that something will happen in the Kremlin or with Putin, and that will bring peace. Peace will not happen while we just wait. We need to take our own responsibility, and we need to have our own strategy for creation of peace in Ukraine. Creating conditions for peace by our own efforts means no longer waiting for anybody else to bring much-needed peace. A just peace in Ukraine can be created only by making Ukraine stronger. And the only ones who can make Ukraine stronger are we, Europeans. So a few words on peace through strength and our support to Ukraine. According to upcoming NATO agreements, we will need to spend 3.5% of GDP for our defense each year. But now, annually, we are spending less than 0.1% of our GDP to assist Ukraine in its defense. From my point of view, something is wrong here with those numbers and with our military logic. Why such a difference? Why do we think that today it is more important to take care only about our own defense capabilities, but not about sufficient capabilities for Ukraine, when Ukraine is defending us against the same threat? I don't understand this military logic. And we have new possibilities to change those numbers. Those possibilities are called safe loans. The Council just approved the regulation on those loans, so 150 billion euros of attractive AAA loans backed by the EU budget will be available, 45 years maturity, 10 years grace period. What is important, Member States can take those loans and spend them together with Ukraine for joint procurement from Ukraine and for Ukraine. Safe loans can become a breakthrough in our support to Ukraine. Few words on new European security architecture. In the case of Russian aggression, we would face a powerful, battle-tested army capable of using millions of deadly drones against us. And there are no military armies in NATO at the moment with the same battle-tested experience. On top of that, we face American withdrawal from Europe. And as the white paper on the future of European defense says, I quote, "A new international order will be formed in the second half of this decade and beyond." That is why we need to see a broader challenge for us. We need not only to take care about our material readiness for defense, but we need to take care about the institutional and political side of our European defense. Looking at the long-term future, it will not be enough just to spend more on defense and to produce more weapons. In order to defend ourselves, it is essential that we develop a European security architecture, as stated in my mission letter I received from President von der Leyen at the start of my mandate. Our strategic goal is to unite all efforts to strengthen European defense into a true European defense union. Again, I am quoting my mission letter. If we agree that defending Europe is an European task, then we need to agree. The European Defence Union architecture is the only way to prepare ourselves for American withdrawal. Few words on Ukraine and United Kingdom as integral part of European security architecture. A new European security architecture, a true European Defence Union, cannot be created without Ukraine as an integral part from the very beginning. While Americans are starting to move out from Europe and Russians are growing stronger, our security in Europe depends on how rapidly we will build a new European security architecture. And Ukraine, with its battle-tested army and extremely innovative defence industry, will be the most important part of that security architecture. With the prospect of Americans leaving, it is obvious that we need Ukraine's integration into the European Union as much as Ukraine needs its own integration. Because this is how we can speed up building our European security architecture. This way we can integrate Ukraine's battle-tested army without delay into our European military structures. And at the same time learn from the Ukrainians how to defend ourselves against the battle-tested Russian army, how to build an innovative European defence industry, and how to do defence in the most innovative way. The same is true for our relationship with the United Kingdom. Withdrawal of the United States should push Europeans towards much more of unity. And of course, the British have remarkable skills on the battlefield and in defence innovation, which will bring a lot of additional strength to the European Defence Union. Few words on European common defence. We need to remember that Article 42, paragraph 2 of the Treaty on European Union says about European defence. I quote, "The common security and defence policy shall include the progressive framing of a common Union defence policy. This will lead to a common defence when the European Council, acting unanimously, so decides." The treaty speaks not only about the possibility to create a common Union defence policy. It defines an obligation for European Union member states to work towards common defence in the European Union. It is obvious that the best moment to start building our common defence is exactly now, when we are facing a double crisis in defence. Russian aggressiveness is increasing, at the same time Americans are starting their withdrawal. The peace dividend is over. The time when we could live without a common European defence is over. Let's face reality and our treaty obligation. And let's remember the historic roots of the Union. It was created for peace on the European continent after the Second World War. And in parallel to the integration of coal and steel industries, there was a profound attempt to create an European defence community by the same godfathers of our Union of today, by Schuman, Adenauer, Monnet, De Gasperi. The European defence community unfortunately failed to be established at that time. Now it's time to correct this historical mistake. A European Defence Union, instead of the European Defence Community, is the right way to go forward. And on how to remove the permanent threat of aggressive authoritarian post-imperial Russia. The American withdrawal from Europe would leave us not only with a material shortage of defence capabilities, but also with a gap in strategic vision. What to do with Russia? Until now, we allocated the task also to the Americans. They were declaring that Russia was part of the new axis of evil, or that there is a need for a reset with Russia. Europeans usually followed the lead. The outcome of such an approach is a more and more aggressive Putin and Russia. and new promises by President Trump to establish good relations with Putin if he will agree on peace. These promises by President Trump are not changing Putin's behavior, and we Europeans are left with a question. After the Americans withdraw from Europe, what kind of strategy do we need towards Russia? Let's not forget, defense is not only about strengthening your own defense capabilities. It's also about reducing your adversaries' capabilities to attack you. How we are building up our defense capabilities, I have just explained. How to reduce Russia's offensive capabilities? Well, we are not so effective. We are introducing new economic sanctions, and they are very much needed, but it is clear that is not enough. The strategic question for Europeans is how to get rid of the permanent threat of an aggressive, authoritarian, post-imperial Russia. That will happen only if the Russian people by themselves will succeed in transforming Russia back to normality. Normality means, first of all, no aggression anymore. There is no hope that it can happen while Putin stays in power. Without Americans, it is our responsibility as Europeans to have a specific European Russia strategy to assist the Russian people in turning Russia back to normality, since any political transformation in Russia is in the hands of the Russian people. And the best way to achieve this is by implementing our Ukraine strategy to create conditions for peace, security, integration and success for Ukraine. Because the example of Ukraine's success can be a very powerful inspiration for the Russian people to turn Russia back to normality. That is what Putin is extremely afraid of. Because Ukraine's success, with its power of inspiration, can destroy Putin's regime. And that is why our strategy for Ukraine's success is so strategically important for the future of a much broader eastern part of Europe, including Russia and Belarus. And few words on leadership. Crisis needs and brings leadership. History teaches us, in order to overcome crisis, there is a need of effective leadership. History also teaches us, when crisis comes, history and nations bring forward the right leaders to overcome the crisis. That is what happened after the Second World War, when Europe needed to unite to be able to stand against the Soviet Union. Adenauer, Schuman, Churchill, Monnet, de Gasperi were the leaders ready to face the challenges of that time. And they got the job done. Our community was born. And today we are witnessing the same things happening. The double challenge of Russian aggression and American withdrawal brings a new set of European leaders who are writing a new history of Europe. For example, Friedrich Merz, Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, Giorgia Meloni, Donald Tusk. And of course, honor here in Aachen tomorrow with the Charlemagne Prize, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And in conclusion, we need to remember that the history of Europe, the future of our kids and grandkids today is decided in Ukraine. So to return to your question, Europe without the United States, is it possible? I will translate it into a more practical and strategic one. Is peace in Ukraine and is victory for Ukraine possible after American withdrawal? Because this is the only single way towards sustainable peace on the European continent. My answer is yes. It is possible, but it's our job as Europeans. So, vivat Europe and Slava Ukraini!